Hello and welcome to the Stryd Live race planning session. This is in celebration of Watts at 1 month. During this month, we want to empower all Striders to set audacious goals and reach them with Stryd. So we're putting together a series of webinars. This is the first one. It's going to be about race planning today, and it's hosted by the Stryd team here. Angus and Connor here to answer questions about the race planning. So I'm going to give it just another minute here before we officially start with the presentation. Just let everyone, allow everyone to get in here. But thank you for joining today. And like I said, this is going to be a series of videos. We're going to start here with this first one that's going to be focused on run planning. The next week's is going to be hosted by Coach Chris Haig. And Chris Haig is going to talk about triathlon race pacing. So he's going to be doing half Ironman and Ironman race pacing. And he has expertise in all these different fields. So you can expect essentially all triathlon distances from Olympic to sprint. So it's hit 6 o'clock here. So we're going to start the presentation. So I'm going to flip over to our slide deck here. Excellent. So race planning with Stryd. This is our cover image here, and this shows exactly how we want Stryd to be used. You can see the elevation profile here in the graph here. So the elevation is undulating, but the power is very constant. This is what you want to be aiming throughout your races. You want to set a power target and stick to it throughout the race. So this is going to be a recap for some of you that already own Stryd, but these are very important core concepts. And this is about the benefits of racing with power. And during a race, this is something you definitely want to keep in mind as you're running. You don't want to forget about these core concepts. So the first one is power is objective. So as we showed in that first image, even if terrain is changing and that's going to change your pace, if you keep that power constant, you're going to do even energy expenditure. And the same goes for heart rate. If your heart rate is starting to vary, you can choose to keep your power constant and not get spooked by a changing heart rate based on, for example, how much you slept last night or how much caffeine is in your system. And one of the big points that doesn't get hit on very often is the mental aspect of running with power. You get to detach yourself from a time-based goal. So let's say you're aiming for a certain time in your 10K race, and the first mile doesn't go as well as you thought it would go. You can only focus on what you can change in that moment. So you can't go back and change the last mile. You can only focus on essentially the energy you're outputting at that point in time. And if you can control that, you can save the race, you can control how you're feeling, and you don't have to look back and say, I wish I would have ran that first mile faster, or I wish, maybe I need to speed the second mile up, because those strategies can be counterproductive to your overall race. It's about focusing on what you can do in this moment based on the power you're outputting. So those are the core concepts and core benefits of racing with power. And these are things that when you're in a race, you want to focus on and make sure you don't lose sight of these core benefits. So we're going to cover a few things. We're not going to jump directly to racing. We're going to talk about a few of the preparation steps before you begin racing with power. And the first one is training with power. The second one is knowing your critical power, and this is your performance baseline. Once you know your performance baseline, it's a lot easier to set your power targets for a race. And then the next concept we're going to cover is estimating the power target for your race. So once you perform that performance baseline test, we're going to have a pretty good idea on what power you can hold throughout the entire race. And then the final two is essentially getting ready for the race. So practicing, dialing in on that intensity, and then going out on race day and doing it. So the first one here is training with power. It's going to be very important to have a training plan that you're following throughout your cycle, because you can't just show up on race day and you won't be able to just show up on race day and race. You're going to have to put in the time and energy to prepare for that race, know what power you can target, and build up your fitness so you can have a great race on that day. So you want to choose the right plan for you. We offer a great service on Stryd.com, and that's our coaching page. So you can find a Stryd coach that's going to fit your needs and fit your goals. So if you're a trail runner, we offer a great host of trail running coaches. So you can go on our page and select a coach that's going to meet your needs, and he's going to be able to, you're going to be able to reach out to him, have him help you set up a training plan, and have him set up a specific race guidance if you need it. The second thing is, if you're not looking for a coach and you just want to find a power-based training plan, a lot of these coaches and a lot of training plans out there already offer the power-based training plan. So you can go directly to a Final Surge or a Training Peaks and select a plan that is right for you. And the third thing is, if you already have a training plan, you can just convert your current training zones into power-based zones and use the plan you already have. So we have a table here that talks about how to convert heart rate zones directly to power zones. So if you have a plan you're satisfied with, or if you have a plan you used in the past, just take those heart rate zones you used to have and just directly convert those to the power zones. So a lot of people are already going to have their critical power set, and this is going to be something you're going to want to reference and make sure you've dialed in before your race time. And your critical power is essentially your performance baseline. It tells you, your current performance, and this is something you can compare over time. So one example is, if you ran a great marathon maybe 4 or 5 months ago and you want to replicate that result, you're going to want to go back to your critical power from that time frame and understand what it was and understand what your training zones were and compare it to what you're doing now and see what could have changed between that point and this point. So this is going to be a great performance indicator over time. It's going to allow you to essentially replicate previous results you've had. And here we just list off some of the tests. So if you want to quickly determine your critical power and you haven't done a test in a while, you just take your 5K or 10K time and input it, and you're going to be able to get your critical power right away. And the other few are a bit more involved, but are going to give a more accurate insight into your critical power, and that's the 6.3 lap test and the 9.3 minute test. And if you type in the chat on the right-hand side of the video, you're going to be able to ask us questions about this, and we can provide the instructions for all these tests and how to find out more about the critical power test. And the other great thing is we've just released new apps for iOS and Android, so you can get these critical power results directly on your phone. So anytime you want to check those, let's say you're preparing for a run or you're out and about, you can load up the Stryd mobile app and directly check those results. All right, the third thing, and this is one that I think a lot of people are going to find very interesting. If you have a critical power and you're trying to race plan for a normal 5K, 10K, half marathon, or marathon, you can directly understand what power you can hold for those events just based on this chart. So if your critical power is 300 watts and you're training for a 10K, your essentially your race target for that 10K is going to be right around 300 watts. So this is going to give you a great estimate. You can just go out and test out immediately and see if this really is the right result for you. So the important thing to note that these power targets are purely for running races. So if you're just doing a straight up 5K or straight up 10K, you can use these guidelines. And as I said, next week, Coach Chris Haig is going to be hosting the webinar here next Thursday. And he's going to be talking about preparing for power targets in Ironman and half marathon and half Ironman triathlon races. So once again, if you want to reference this chart, just go to chat and we can provide you a link to this chart so you can easily, quickly reference this whenever you're preparing for a race. Now we're moving on to the race preparation. So let's say you're a few weeks out from race day, or maybe even a week out from race day. You can set your power target for the race based on that chart I just showed you. But an important thing is testing and practicing this power target. So if you are training for a 10K and you think your race target is 300 watts, you're going to want to give this a test. And here are a few recommendations on how you can test this and verify that power target is right for your race. So an example workout for the 5K is 8 to 10 repetitions of 400 meters at your 5K power with a 400-meter jog between. So you can test out this power and get a great feeling based on this workout to see if that power target is actually going to work in the race without going all the way and stressing yourself, in a race environment. And here's the same result for the same procedure for the 10K. You can go 4 to 6 1 mile repetitions at 10K power with 2 to 3 minutes rest in between. And you can gauge if this power is actually going to be right for you on that race day. And we're going to jump to the half marathon and marathon results now. So for a marathon race, you want to do a long run at marathon power or repetitions at half marathon power. So choose some terrain or choose a practice course that's going to be similar to the actual race you're doing. Practice the nutrition and, what your apparel that day, whether that's shoes, socks, shirt, shorts. Try and simulate the race condition as much as you can and go run that power. And if everything feels good, you've nailed the right target. And if something didn't go wrong, if something went wrong that day, that is something you want to investigate. So, for example, your critical power might not be accurate, or your fitness may have significantly changed since you last did the critical power test, or you may be suffering from injury or illness if that practice run didn't go right. So you definitely want to understand if things didn't go right, why they didn't go right, and if things went well, you're going to want to replicate those same exact conditions on race day, because that's what you essentially practiced at. So moving here on to the final point here, and this is racing with power. And this comes down to the actual logistics on how should you race with power? How should you use that power on race day? And we have a few options here. If you own a Garmin watch, a Suunto watch, or Polar watch, you're going to have access to these power data fields. So real-time power, 3-second average power, 10-second average, and then you can see the rest of the options here. And one of the common questions we get from different people is, what averaging should I be using? What should I be using? For example, if you're on a course of very undulating terrain and the conditions are changing often, or the surface conditions are changing often, we recommend something with much quicker averaging or something real time, because you're going to be able to immediately adjust to those conditions. If you're racing a very steady course with, let's say, very flat terrain, or most of the course is alike itself, you're going to be wanting to use longer averaging, and this is going to help you really understand your performance better and get an idea of how things that are. It's not going to change very often. It's really going to be steadier course. You're going to use longer averaging power. And if you use a Garmin watch, you're going to have access to the Stryd Power Race app, and this is a great app that's going to notify you if you fall out of your power zone. So let's say I set a power zone for my 10K at 300 watts and I drop to like 270 watts. It's going to be hard for me to check my watch constantly to see if I'm in the right zone. But Power Race is going to vibrate you and alert you if you fall out of that zone. And you're going to immediately know to get back in the zone to keep your race on track. So those are the 5 core concepts here that we really wanted to hit on for the racing of power. And if you do all these things, that's going to greatly enhance your chance of hitting that personal record on race day. So let me just recap this one more time. Then we're really going to open it up for questions here. So the first one is train with power. Make sure you're training with power. Make sure you have a power-based training plan so you know what your wattage feels like as you're training. You can get a personal attachment to that power. Make sure you understand your critical power and then estimate a power target based on your critical power. And this is going to be a great guide for race day. And then the final 2 points are really getting close to the race and really preparing it and nailing things down. Practice with that power target, ensure it is right for you, simulate the conditions on race day, and then you're going to be able to get out there and start racing with power. So one of the things we like to do that we have done at some of the marathons over the last year, we attended the New York Marathon, the Boston Marathon, the London Marathon, is we opened up for individualized race planning. So if someone came up to us and asked, what power should I be holding for my marathon tomorrow, or how should I approach the race strategy for this marathon, we'd open up their Power Center account, we'd sift through their data, and we'd offer a recommendation on what kind of power target you should be holding. And we want to try and replicate this right now with the viewers here. So anyone that has any questions about the race power they should be holding, there's a live chat right next to the video stream. And we'd love it if you could ask us some specific questions, or if you want us to look at your data right now, if you can drop your username in there, we're going to pull up your account and offer you a race plan. And we really want this to be an open dialogue, or we can offer you recommendations on how you can, set a new PR during this month of Watts at One. So I'm going to jump out of the screen share here, and then Kun and I are going to be ready for your questions. We've got a question from Alexander Gomez. Hi, and I'll read off Alexander's question here. Hi, but talking about triathlon critical power, would it be better in a triathlon race of 5 kilometer or 10 kilometer after swim and bike? So one of the common questions, or one of the recommendations that Coach Chris has talked about in the past is you either lower the percentage of FTP you're holding relative to your critical power. So for example, if you're doing a 70.3, which is, half Ironman, you can do 85 to 90% of your critical power. And for full Ironman, it'd be 75 to 80% of critical power. So it's possible that you drop the percentage points based on your critical power and see if that works. The other strategy that Coach Chris has talked about is doing essentially a threshold run off of the bike and seeing what your power is at. So if you do an off the bike run, essentially trying to replicate a critical power test in those conditions to see how your power changes. So those are two recommendations here. And if we take and definitely save this question and come back next week for Coach Chris, as he's going to be talking in far more detail about the triathlon race recommendations. So jumping to the next question, we have Nathan Fenton. And he asks, do you define critical power to be roughly the same as FTP? And that stands for functional threshold power. And I'm going to have Kun talk about this briefly.
All right, so yes, basically the way we define the critical power is basically the same as the way the FTP is defined in the cycling. So it's roughly the power you can hold for 50 to 60 minutes. So the short answer is yes, that's how do we define the critical power.
So we've got a question from Sinan here, and he's asking power recommendations for a full Ironman. So Kun is actually going to get this data pulled up here, and we're going to go through Sinan's data here as we have the opportunity. And as Kun is pulling up his data, I want to talk a little bit more about Watts at 1 month. So we sent out an email earlier this week in celebration of Ben Canute's victory at Escape from Alcatraz. And Ben is a 2-time winner of Escape from Alcatraz here, and we're extremely proud to sponsor Ben with Stryd and essentially really support his race and help him get these great results with the power data. And Ben has been a long time supporter of ours. He was using Stryd back when he qualified and ran in the Olympics back in 2016. He used Stryd when he came in second at the 70.3 World Championships. So we wanted to dedicate a month to Ben's race results and Ben's passion for racing and the sport of running and triathlons. So we're dedicating the month of June to the concept of Watts at 1 and to Ben Canute's victory. So during the entire month of June, we want you, the Stryd community, to be out there racing and putting out great results, and we want to be celebrating those. So any races during the month of June, we want you to email us at stryd@stryd.com. And if you email us at stryd@stryd.com, we want to make you a personalized Watts at 1 portrait and essentially celebrate the energy and effort you put into being the best runner you can be, and attending sessions like this and really trying to find the details that will make the difference in your training and racing. So Kun's been looking through Sinan's data here, and Kun is going to give some recommendations based on what he's seeing for Sinan here. So
just based on what I saw here, so Sinan, based on your critical power, so the range we recommend is actually between 155 to 165, this range. And I saw from your training in the past weeks, you're having some basically 12 to 30 miles of the training, which is around 170 to 170, 160 to 170 watts on average. So that just tells me, say, for the half marathon kind of distance, you are able to hold, say, about like say 165 to 170 watts. And if that's the case, then because for the Ironman, like it's a full marathon distance, and also you're off the bike, it's a non-bike. So we feel like the range based on your critical power would be a good range, which is between 155 to 160-ish. So if you feel like this range is a little bit higher, let me know that it's very likely that it's because the critical power setting maybe it's a little bit outdated for you. And if you feel like that's the case, and you want to talk about how do you like update your critical power level, and maybe redefine the race power strategy, you can email us, and we're happy to talk to you more about this.
And we have a question here from Jeffrey Williams. Will there be a webinar going over the Power Center features? So that's a great question, Jeff. Speaking on Coach Chris Haig, he actually has a YouTube series available that talks about the Power Center features. So I'm going to see if I'm going to fetch this right now. I'm going to drop it in the chat here for essentially Chris's recommendations on using different Power Center features here. So hold tight here for just a moment, and I'm going to get that link dropped into chat here. And this is going to be useful for everyone. So anyone that's getting accustomed to the Power Center and looking for recommendations on how to best use the Power Center, you're going to be able to pick up a lot of useful tips on some very, some lesser known features that exist in the platform. So one moment here, I'm dropping it in here. And there it is. Take a look at that link. And this is going to link to Chris's YouTube channel. And he actually has a series of 5 videos called Stryd Cast. And you're going to be able to get some great information there. So looking at the next question here, Jared asks, I'm racing 10K Saturday. Username is Jared Tuft. Had a good 5K recently. So, and Seth's running there too. Good luck, guys, at the 10Ks. Jeff is also racing Grandma's Marathon. So good luck, guys. And Kun is pulling up Jared's data right here. So we're going to have some results here in just a second, and I'm going to pull up. Jeff. I'm going to pull up your data on my side too, and I'm going to screencast that if that's all right here. So, Kun, what are you seeing on Jared's data here so far?
So Jared has a critical power of 292. So roughly speaking, Jared, because Jared is asking for the 10K recommendation, so roughly speaking, Jared should be able to hold at least 310 to 320. But in terms of the detailed number, I need more time to check out his data.
Okay, so we're gonna get some more results there for you in a second, Jared. So I'm pulling up looking through the chat here again. I'm pulling up Jeff's data here, and Jeff is preparing for the Grandma's Marathon next Saturday. So we're gonna take a look for Jeff's last long run essentially and get an idea on what his fitness is at there. So I see a long run of 16.5 here, and we're gonna get that pulled up. And roughly based on our recommendations, the marathon target is going to be at the marathon target's going to be at roughly 90% or 89.9% of critical power. And the main thing I want to check here with Jeff's data is essentially a fatigue profile. So I'm going to open up leg spring stiffness here, and I'm going to see how much Jeff fatigued over his last long run. So one of the really cool strategies we can do here is select a part of the run and open up the average leg spring stiffness bubble. And we can get this by clicking on the average elapsed form power. And that's going to open up the average leg spring over a period of time. And I'm just going to grab this slider here, and I'm going to take the slider and move it over here and look at how the leg spring stiffness changes over time. And we started around 12.4 as a value for leg spring. And as we move through the run, we actually see that it stays pretty constant, even after about an hour and 15 minutes in, the leg spring is actually gone up to 12.5. So it's slightly gone up. So I don't see any meaningful signs of fatigue in Jeff's data. I see an average power of, I'm going to zoom in. It looks like there's, we lost some at the end of the run here, but I'm going to zoom. I see a power of around 204 watts there. So now I want to look for a more high tempo run. And Jeff, can you tell me what your critical power is? And I'm going to look to confirm if we can use that marathon critical power target for this race on Saturday for Grandma's Marathon. And Jeff, if you have the critical power, if you could just drop that into chat here, and I'll be able to get a better recommendation on the, okay, so 253. So we saw around an average of 200 watts for that longer run, and your critical power is around 253. So taking around 90% of that is going to give us, it's going to give us a power target around 220, around 225. So I feel pretty good about a power target of around 220 for that race. Does that sound like something you can manage throughout that race distance? Does that sound like something you can manage throughout that race distance, Jeff? I'm just going to take a look at a few more of Jeff's run here. Okay, so then I like the recommendation there around 89.9% of critical power here. And let me just get that exact number here for you, Jeff. 253. Yeah, so that's actually going to put you around 227. So I think 200, like, maybe 225 for that race is going to put you right in the right area, Jeff. And like I said, your fatigue, I don't see much fatigue in that run. So I think you're going to be good to go. I think it's really just going to be about holding that constant power, and you're going to end up just fine for that event.
We can go back to Jared.
Okay, so now Kun has some results for Jared. He just finished looking through that data here, so I'm going to let Kun jump back in here.
Yeah, so for Jared, so based on the data Jared has, so it seems like the critical power for you is set to be pretty high. And so I looked over some of your recent training with kind of like high intensity. And I feel like the power range, just based on the training you have here, the power range should be, say, 265 to 280. It's a little bit of the big range, but that's basically the range we can give just based on looking at your data. And so again, so it's 265 to 280. And let me see if you. Okay, so Jared just said in the chat window, say the recent marathon average power was 240 or so. If we use 240, then so in that case, basically the 10K power you want to hold is around 267. So that basically narrows the window down to 265 to 270, this kind of range. So Jared, what do you think about this range? 265 to 270.
And as we wait for Jared's response here, we are doing this is essentially a hangout on air. So it's actually possible for you guys to join in on the live stream. So if you have any questions you want to ask in real time, or if you have any comments on what we're talking about, we're actually going to give you this opportunity. If you click on this link, you're going to be able to join us live in the actual feed and ask us direct questions on the chat. And you may come in and muted as you enter, but we can unmute you, and then you'll be able to talk to us.
So Jared just said sounds about right. So let me see. So Jared, because you said you're gonna have the race, when is that? Oh, this Saturday. Okay, so it's basically 2 days away. Yeah. So I would say probably start with maybe 270 first, and then you can adjust a little bit based on your feeling. But I wouldn't suggest you to kind of start with the CP you are currently setting, which is like 290. I think 290 is probably too high for now.
So going through some of the questions since we last checked, Alexander is in here, and he asked, for full Ironman, 80% can be used for all athletes, pros, and age group. As I experienced before, it works very well. So that's the 80% guideline we tossed out there is going to be a very general guideline. So what does this mean? It means that it's going to probably work for a majority of athletes, but it won't be perfect for everyone. So we would definitely recommend, and I don't know what your capability is, I mean, preparing for a full Ironman, but I would definitely go back to that concept of preparing for the race and trying to do a race-based effort. So if you do a long bike ride, try and do an 80% run off of the bike and see how that feels. And then you're going to be able to quickly tell if that is right for you, if it needs to go down a few percentage points or up a few percentage points.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that Ironman is a long race, and anything could go wrong. Like the nutrition could go wrong, or the heat could be like it could be very hot environment. So again, so this is like a guideline, and we want you guys to kind of be able to dynamically adjust it based on the environmental factors at that time, and also your internal nutrition factors.
We just got a question from Bobby Child online. Fellas, go through the CP test again, please. Great. Let us pull that up. And then in the meantime, we had a question from Paul Wilkie. Paul has been a long time supporter of ours, and he talks about how nice it is to put faces behind the names, and we wish Paul good luck in his upcoming race here, this half distance triathlon in October. And then Paul has a question here, so let's get to that in a second. We're going to recover the critical power section here, and I'll get our screen share going up again. So just to give a bit of a precursor here, the critical power test, this is about setting a performance baseline. So as you set a performance baseline, this is going to determine your zones. This is going to determine the power you can hold for different races. So if you're heavy in a training cycle right now and you can't fit in a full critical power test, you can easily just put in a 5K or 10K time onto the Stryd mobile app, and you're instantly going to get a critical power time or a critical power that you can hold for the different zones. If you have a gap to do a kind of an interval-based high intensity critical power test, you can either do the 6-3 lap test or the 9-3 minute test. And we have full procedures in our Stryd training manual. So if you visit stryd.com/guide, you're going to get our power training manual. And this is going to describe how to do these tests in depth here. And I'm going to have Kun put this link, the stryd.com/guide, into the chat here. And you'll be able to look at the guide right now and ask us any questions that you have based on the guide, and we can answer them for the critical power test. So I'm going to jump back out of the. Well, let me just go to the next slide real quick for our question asker here. Here's the power target slide again. So once you have the critical power, you can instantly figure out the power targets for the different race distances. And these results were pulled from our own database. Speaking of Stryd users, and not just also understanding the physiology of the racer. And we found that these work extremely well in most cases. And for the triathletes out there, as I previously mentioned, Coach Chris Haig will be on the webinar next week, and he'll be talking about in detail power targets for Ironman and half Ironman races. So jumping back at a screen share here, we have a question from
Paul. Paul does have one question
from Paul Wilkie. So Paul is using Stryd for his run and Trainer Road for his bike and swim. His half marathon training plan is running 6 days a week. Since he's also training for a triathlon, is it possible to cut out 1 or 2 days for his running? So Paul, just a quick clarification here. Is this a what kind of plan is this? Are you training for the are you following a half distance triathlon plan? Are you following a marathoning plan? Give us a little more information on the marathon, on the plan you're following, and we can offer some recommendations.
So the next question comes from Nathan. Is the extrapolation of the power target model still accurate beyond basically marathon distance? So the answer is, if we are talking about like longer distance race, and if the race, say, the race surface or race terrain is similar to a like marathon race, which means it's still a road race, yes, then the extrapolation would still work. But if we are talking about, say, some of the ultra race, like 50 miles, 100 miles in the mountains, then we wouldn't use the same extrapolation, because for those races, you're gonna also consider the much more steep, like uphill or downhill, and also many of the like segments is going to be very technical. And so basically for the ultra distance, especially for the ultra race in the mountains, we usually like do the analysis for the power case by case. And in this case, we would recommend you to reach out either on the Facebook community or reach out directly to us and to talk about the context of the race. Oh yeah, so Nathan clarified. So he has a few clients who run, 50 to 100 kilometers trail races. So for this kind of race, like I said, so it's almost impossible for us to give a power like target prediction, because different trail races they are very unique in terms of the terrain change and in terms of the like cost profile. So it's really race by race specific analysis. So Nathan, if you are still interested, you can either ask these questions in the Stryd Facebook community, so we can tag some of the trail like ultra trail coaches who have been working with us for a long time, so to see what do they think, or we can give you the suggestion directly.
So we got some more clarification from Paul here, and Paul was talking about training plans. So he has a bike and swim training plan from Trainer Road, and he has the half marathon plan from Stryd, and he's trying to balance these two plans together. And I think the key here for this is it's really about you've got to pick your spots a bit, in that, you know, if you're really strong on the endurance side and you want to build more the speed side, it's going to be possible to cut out some of the endurance work on the Stryd power training plan. And if you really need to work more on the bike or swim, then you're going to want to even cut out more of those workouts on the Stryd training plan. So it's kind of more of an art than a science for this one. It's really going to be based on your current capabilities. So, you know, Paul, let's definitely follow via email here, and I'd love to get into the details here and really figure out what workouts can be cut and what workouts shouldn't be cut here. We got a question from Patrick Buckley. He has the Garmin Phoenix 3 heart rate, and he uses the Stryd app. So the app will only show the power, and it will not show the heart rate while running. And the answer to this one here is we recommend you use the Stryd Power data field in this situation. And when you use the data field, you're going to need to put that directly into the run mode and customize the screens to also show the heart rate. So this will allow you maximum flexibility in seeing all that data, as opposed to the Stryd IQ app, where you're going to get more power averaging. You won't get the heart rate live. So this is definitely something we can change. So if anyone has any feedback here and they really would like to see more features as part of the Stryd IQ app, definitely sound off in the comments, and we can make some modifications there to also allow in more metrics there. So thank you everyone for your questions so far. Definitely keep them coming here. We have a question from Endurance and Power. Is there a way to use Training Peaks daily workout with the Stryd IQ app? And I'll describe these two apps real quick. The Training Peaks daily workout app, it is a app on your Garmin watch that can pull in all of your training from your Training Peaks account. So let's say you're following a plan on your Training Peaks account, like for example, a half marathon training plan. On a daily basis, you're going to get notifications saying today's a interval run or today's a long run day. And then you're going to open up the running app, and you're going to be able to follow the workout guidance directly inside of the running app on your Garmin watch. So the Training Peaks daily workout app is always going to open up the default built-in Garmin run mode. So you're going to want to use the Stryd Power data field once again. And if you put that Stryd Power data field inside of the run mode app on your watch, you're going to view your power in real time with the Training Peaks daily workout app. So essentially the answer is be sure to have that data field on your watch and customize it so it is inside of the run mode on your watch. Then it'll automatically integrate with the Training Peaks daily workout. And that's a great app. There's a few great apps out there that offer the daily training on your watch. So we definitely recommend checking out the Training Peaks daily workout app, which you can see at trainingpeaks.com/Garmin. And you're going to be able to see essentially all the workouts directly on your watch, which is a great feature. We've got a question here from Bobby Child Online. Is there a way to see power and average power on a data screen? And the answer is yes on some watches. So Bobby, let us know what watch you have in the comments here. And I'm going to describe how to do this for the rest of the viewers out there. So if you have a Garmin watch, and let me start with, if you have a Sunto watch or a Polar watch, this functionality is going to be built into your watch, so you can do the power averaging. So you can just directly customize the data screens and show real-time power, average power, lap power directly on either a Sunto or Polar watch. If you have a Garmin watch, there is a way to do this. The first step is, and I feel like you guys have heard me say this a few times now, but make sure you have the Stryd power data field on your watch. This is going to be one of the data fields that you need. The second data field you need is the app builder data field. And the app builder data field is only compatible with a certain subset of watches. It's built for the watches that also support triathlon. And the app builder is going to allow you to customize essentially all the data you want to see. So you can say, app builder, I want to see lap power, or app builder, I want to see average power. And it's going to allow you to directly do that. So Bobby just chimed in here and he said he has the Garmin 235. And on the 235, we're not going to be able to access that app builder data field, but we are looking to bring more power averaging options to the Forerunner 235. So definitely stay tuned on our newsletter and on our blog, and we'll definitely update you as these features come out. So that was a bit complex. So let me just summarize that one more time. If you have a watch that supports triathlon or bike power meters, go to the Garmin App Store and get the App Builder data field in conjunction with the Stryd Power data field. If you have a running only watch, just use the Stryd Power data field, and you're going to be able to see the power, and that's the best we can do right now, but we definitely want to expand that in the future. So let's keep the questions coming here. This, a chance to directly chat with us only comes up so often, and we love chatting with you guys and getting all of your questions answered. So sound off in that chat window to the right side of the video, and we'll answer your questions. And for anyone that's joined us since the webinar started, I want to hit on the Watts at One concept one more time. This is Watts at One month. June is Watts at One. And Watts at One is really about the winning spirit of the Stryd community. We want to celebrate your guys' effort you're putting in to training and racing, and all the high performances you want to get out of your time using Stryd and all the races you've entered this month. So we're going to be holding a series of 4 webinars, one on every Thursday. And we're going to be following up with you guys that do have races scheduled this month and celebrating all of your great success stories. So if you guys have any races coming up this month, please email us at stryd@stryd.com, or if you have any race results, please email us at stryd@stryd.com so we can create you a personalized Watts at One image. And you guys have seen these as part of the email campaigns we've been sending out, and we absolutely love them. It kind of focuses deep in on the runner and shows them in their breakthrough moment. Then we put the power target that got them there. And it's this real electrifying image that we really enjoy. We really enjoy getting to you guys. And we've got some really great racing images from the Stryd community. And that is something that we're just so thrilled and flattered that we get to do for you guys that are part of the community. So we're going to wait here for a few more questions. So anyone that has any questions on race planning, if they have a race coming up in the month of June, definitely drop in any questions you have in preparing for that race. We had a few Stryders connect up earlier. They're both running Grandma's Marathon coming up here, and I hope those two can meet each other at the race and talk about their time using Stryd and get to meet a few other Stryd users. We helped out a few runners earlier. We helped out Jared dial in on the right power target for his race and get his critical power set right. We talked with Jeff earlier about his power target for his race, and we also helped out Sinan prepare for his full Ironman race time. So every small change can make the difference here. Any change to your race plan, even just a day beforehand, that can drastically change a race from a major success to something that you may look back and say, well, I wish I would have changed my power target. I wish I would have went out not so hard. Any any tiny changes before the race can make a big distance when it comes to race day. So you really want to consider all these different parameters on, is my critical power set correctly? Is this the right power target for me? And, every single thing you can check over that can make a big difference to the success of your race on race day. We had Endurance Power chimed in here. It's Edgar Diaz from Panama. Hi to Panama from Boulder, Colorado here. We're happy to be having Striders from all across the world join us here. Patrick Buckley asks, next Thursday, what time is your broadcast? So next Thursday, we're doing the broadcast slightly earlier so we can fit in more European Striders and more Striders from around the world that can get in on this. We just scheduled in with Coach Chris today, and let me check the calendar here. So that webinar is going to be at 2 p.m. Mountain Time here in 2 p.m. Mountain Time. So that's going to be 4 p.m. East Coast time, and then around 7 o'clock, I think, in the UK, but we'll have to check that. So once again, the webinar next Thursday is going to be at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, and we're going to announce this via email too, but definitely write that down on your calendar if you want to learn more about the Ironman race pacing. So we've got a question from Edgar Diaz in Panama here, and he asks, how do we manage weight changes in athletes for critical power calculation? And I'm going to have Kun talk a little bit about managing the weight changes here.
Yeah, so I assume this question is related to in the training cycle, so it's not in the race. So basically, during the training cycle, the athlete's weight can be changed a little bit or can be changed a lot. So if if the condition is allowed, then whenever the athlete is having, say, 1 or 2 kilograms of the change, we do want them to just update the weight in the mobile app and synchronize the updated weight information to the Stryd device. But if, say, the athletes don't want to, they change the weight like too frequently, and also so in that we say, okay, so if the weight change is not that much, let's say 1 kilogram or something, then it may affect the critical power baseline, say 1 to 3 watts, but that's probably not a big deal in terms of the using the critical power in the training. So yeah, maybe then you don't need to change the weight, but once the weight change cause the critical power baseline to be changed for more than 5%, say more than 5%, then we definitely recommend you to ask your athletes to update the weight to the Stryd. And once athletes update the weight to the Stryd, they can actually go to the critical power calculation screen, and they don't need to change anything. Like, say, if they did a critical power test, the result, they don't need to change the result, or they don't need to change the race time for the estimator. They just need to click on the calculation button again. Then the Stryd backend is going to calculate the new critical power based on the updated weight, and update that information in our system. So then all the training stress score and all the other information which is where the critical power is needed will be updated as well. So to quickly recap, so if the weight change is big enough such that you feel like you want your athletes to update the weight, then first of all, ask them to go to the mobile app to change the weight, synchronize that weight information into the device. Then the second step is to go to the critical power calculation page and just click on the calculate button again. So then the critical power is going to be updated based on the new weight.
Thanks for your question there, Edgar. And I want to take the opportunity to thank all the viewers that have came in to watch us live. And we have a special sneak preview here. And we think this is going to be really, really enjoyed by the triathlon crowd and the running crowd, a part of our community here. I'll let the product speak for itself here. So you can see we're going to do some customized Stryd laces. And just take a look at these. These are bungee-based laces that have Stryd imprinted on them in electric orange color. So you're made to show off your Stryd running with power pride whenever you go out on race day or whenever you're doing a group run. And you're going to have great access to quickly put your shoes on in triathlon events just through the bungee lacing system. And it's going to overall offer a more comfortable run performance due to the lower amount of pressure on your foot due to the bungee laces. So this is something we're really excited about. Details are coming soon on the bungee laces, but this is a bit of a sneak preview here for all the live stream viewers that are joining us. And we look forward to getting these out in the wild soon. So just take a look at that. Really excited about these Stryd Rip laces here. This is a collaboration with a company called Rip Laces. The first custom laces available from Rip Laces here, and they're going to be Stryd featured.
So Edgar asked another question. So can you use Stryd to simulate heel repeats with inclination and gradient on a treadmill? So the answer is yes. So for now, in order to do that, you need to use the mobile app to record the data. So on the mobile app, there's a mode called indoor running. So once you go to the indoor running and the mobile app connects to the Stryd, there's a button on both iOS and Android platform, of course. So there's a button for you to click on to change the current incline of the treadmill. So once you change the current incline on the treadmill in the mobile app, then the power data you get from the mobile app is going to be compensated for that incline settings in the app. So this is the current way to do it. And also, we receive a lot of feedbacks on this one, and like many users, they want to have the like the power compensation based on the incline set on the treadmill without using the Stryd mobile app to do the record. So we receive your feedback, and we are working on this feature. And there's nothing to announce right now, but what I can tell you guys is we are actively working on that, and please stay tuned.
Awesome. This has been a great Stryd live race planning session so far, and we're really thrilled with everyone that's joined us so far and all the great questions that have come in. So we're going to wrap things up here in the next 4 to 5 minutes here, unless we get some more questions here. So thank you, Nathan, for jumping in here. Get the last question of the day answered here. So Nathan asks, Kun, do you think the Regal formula is useful / accurate? And if you look at the comment section, you're going to see the formula that Nathan lists out here. So I'm going to let Kun talk about this.
Yeah. So Nathan, I think the Regal formula. So basically, I believe different people have different aerobic capability. So the Regal formula, because the original Regal formula used 5% to scale the power number, which is not necessarily the case for everyone. So in Stryd, we also use Regal formula to do all different kind of, say, the race power estimation based on the distance. But the ballpark of the percentage we use is going to be different based on your critical power test. So based on your critical power test results, if we feel like you have very good aerobic base and aerobic capability, then essentially that means your endurance is very good. Then we use 5%. If we feel like your endurance is kind of moderate, then we use 7 to 8%. If we feel like you are kind of short distance, like powerful guy, but your endurance is not there yet, then we use 9 to 10%. So I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. Wrapping things up here, closing in on an hour here. We're just so thankful that you guys have joined here for the Watts at 1 a month and the live race planning. Definitely tune in next week, next Thursday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll be sending an email out to remind everyone, and stay tuned for more information on the laces. Once again, thanks to everyone that joined, and we'll sign off here.